Well, welcome everybody. My name's Tim Stevens, the Creative Director for the Rite Group, and joining us today is Troy Hillard, the founder and CEO of the Rite Group. Now, you're many things: a founder, father, entrepreneur. Is there anything else I've missed?
No, that's definitely the main things in my life, I guess. Father, business owner, in that order.
Yeah. So you were a father before you were a business owner?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, my oldest daughter is 21.
Far out.
Yeah.
So when did you first start your very first business?
My first business would have started in 2013.
Goodness.
Almost 13 years.
What was the business?
Debt collection and repossession. So I was out repossessing people's cars and boats who didn't want to pay their bills and serving people with court documents.
What did you find you learned in that you didn't know when you started that business?
There's a lot of people out there with pretty screwed up circumstances. You know, some their own fault, some just the cards that they've been dealt through life.
Okay.
Yeah, so interesting couple of years being a repo man.
I was going to say, how did you manage that? I was going to say, you can empathise with the situation, but you still got a job to do.
Yeah, literally. You look at it from the point of view that the finance company is a business. Somebody out there has lent their money to other people on the promise of payment. So those people are out of pocket. It's their business, it's their family that's losing out through no fault of their own, through other people's circumstances. So you had a job to do, go out and get the assets and, you know, protect the person who's lent the money.
Did you ever have anyone try and fight you?
Every day. And believe it or not, it's not who you would think it is. It's not the big islander guy or the gang member. Probably the most violent are the middle class white women. They're the ones that push it the furthest. Because most blokes know that if you hit another bloke, you've got to understand they're probably going to hit you back. But the women know that they're not going to get hit back, so they push it further and further and further.
Yeah.
Than most other people.
Did anyone ever pull like a weapon out?
No weapons really pulled. Lots of threats of violence and fights, but you got to understand when you're there to take their car, you're not asking to take the car. The car's hooked to your tow truck before you go and ask for the keys.
Right.
And you ask for the keys. If they say no, you just drive off without the keys.
Simple as that.
So you're not there to negotiate. You're not even there to take payment. You're there to take the asset, and that's it.
And would you find from doing that there's a transferable skill into other areas of business, like resilience, negotiation, self-regulation?
Yeah, definitely. Probably the biggest thing I find that is comparable is around the legal side of it. Franchising is a very legal intense industry around the franchise agreement, disclosure documents, contracts. And same as repossession. You are an arm of the finance company, and there's lots of legislation around that, licensing, and then, you know, document everything. Same as our franchisees. Every time I have a phone call with a franchisee, I write a record of conversation. Same as when you deal with someone whose asset you're taking. We used to video and audio record it with a GoPro camera. Just so that there was a record, because it's easy for them to say that I threatened them when I'm taking their car, and then it's easy for a franchisee to say that I said something. So just document everything, make sure you've got your T's crossed, your I's dotted, because you may have to come back to that at some point.
Okay, so it seems like legal requirements, contracts, and security is something you learned. Is there any other jobs you've had that have taught you about security?
Security in regards to?
Well, it seems like you're keeping your assets safe, covering your bases.
Not so much. For me, it's I came from very little. Sure. So originally from Australia, quite a poor background, state housing type of environment. And as I guess I've evolved through my businesses, I've just been very conscious about not losing what I've built. So just taking the right advice, lawyers, accountants, and just make sure that everything's sorted for the long term. In everything I do, I always have the vision for the long term. So I'm not really worried about today or tomorrow. I'm worried about next year, next month, next decade. So everything's proactively planned for the future.
When was the exact moment you knew you wanted to start the Rite Group?
I was doing repossessions, and you end up going home every day, literally fighting for every paycheck. And then I wanted to do something that was positive. I didn't want to deal with people's personal crap basically every day. And then I started to look around at different businesses, different business models, and then I come across the franchise philosophy, and I quickly realised that it's the way to scale a business without having all of your capital tied up. But it's also a way to have a business where your income is not 100% reliant upon the actual output of yourself. So as a franchise model, we make our income from tiny percentages of all our franchisees. So for me, it was a way to scale. And then for me, it was just had to find an industry that I could franchise. Yeah, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a doctor. So I had to look for industries that I could do and do very, very well. And then we come across the exterior cleaning, pressure washing, soft washing, house washing industry. And that was our light bulb moment that we could take this industry that has large margins, that it's a very fragmented industry that didn't really have one core brand, especially in New Zealand. And we started the process to build WashRite.
Okay, and was there at any point in that process of discovery, due diligence, and then you found the fragmented market, you wanted to start scaling, was there ever a moment in that process where you almost backed out or didn't go through with it?
No, I didn't have a choice. So once I sold the repossession business, I had to survive, I had to live, so I had to back myself. And for me, that's the best way to go forward, is that you have to go forward. So it was a pretty straightforward process for us that basically we took the proceeds from one business sale to fund the equipment and the launch of the other. And it was just a rinse and repeat process.
Okay. What was your first job out of high school?
First job out of high school was in the army.
Oh, okay. So you come from military.
Yeah, literally. So had a couple of jobs through high school, like the McDonald's and working at a service station type jobs. But I finished high school, I think, on the Wednesday, and I marched into the Australian Army on the Friday. So, the shorter gap as possible between the two would have left less chance to get in trouble.
Sure. Okay. So short transition.
Yep.
After leaving the military, tell me more about that. What was that transition like back into Civvy Street?
A big transition. In the Army, you have the ability to act a certain way, and the way you're allowed to act and behave isn't always acceptable in the real world. So it was a good 6-12 months just to get myself re-established in society, really. But I went straight into heavy transport management, and that's what I did in the Army. Corps of Transport, straight into heavy transport management down in Sydney, and operations manager for large freight companies.
Okay. And in there, you would have obviously logistics, planning, organisation.
Yep.
When I look at the Rite Group, I look at the systems. You guys
Yep.
are really meticulous with having systems and
Yep.
SOPs. Is that something that you've taken from those, industries?
Probably not. Probably, I think the big thing we've taken from those industries is probably more around the work ethic and the very direct no PC culture. Dealing with truck drivers day in and day out, it's that type of culture. I was very lucky when I first started this business that I had someone who exposed me to a very successful franchise network and how that operated and what we should do. So I have taken a lot of their system ideas and taken it to structure into our business. Now, that franchise network was in a totally different industry and much larger than ours, but we've taken their ideas and just started to implement into ours. And it's almost like a system upon a system upon a system. So when you find there's a gap in your systems, oh crap, let's start building a system to fix that gap. And it was all around having a business that would operate if I'm not here, because I do a lot of travel, so the business has to continue to run when I'm not here. So the staff need to know what to do when this happens or what to do when that happens. And then when we started to franchise, we had to have the exact same systems but structured for the franchisees. They can't just keep ringing me every day, so they need to have a game plan, a roadmap to follow. If this happens, do that. If that happens, do that. If this happens, do this, then that. And it's just one system after another. And we literally had a plan to write literally a system a week. That was literally the idea. Let's have one system written down every single week. By the end of the year, you've got 52 systems.
All right. And then when I hear that, I also think, say, in the army as well, as you know, I come from a military background too. There's lots of SOPs, but there's also an order of march in terms of who people report to. Is that something you have with the Rite Group?
Yeah, definitely. It is something that's evolved over the years. Going back 7 years ago, it was literally just me. So everyone reported to me, everyone called me. But as the business has grown in multiples year after year, we've had to bring new people in and delegate the reporting duties to them. So everyone's not just calling me. Because a lot of the time I don't know. Very basic stuff. I just don't know anymore. I mean, we have staff who look after the small stuff and then the medium stuff day in and day out. For me, these days, it's really just a contractual question, a financial question, or a strategy question, really.
So who would be your platoon sergeant?
Probably my partner, Sarah, definitely from an overview point of view. She looks over all 4 of our brands, plus our other business interest. And then we have dedicated people per one of the brands.
Okay, so they'll be like your section leaders.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. All right. Challenging and turning points. What's been like one of the hardest, most challenging days you've had since you've been a founder?
We've had people die in our business. That's always a pretty shitty time. That's probably one of the hardest parts. Overall in the business, probably the hardest part is dealing with personalities. We've got so many people, like 250 odd franchisees, I think, today. And you're dealing with 250 different people, 250 different problems. Some of those 250 people want to pass their problems on to you so you can fix it for them, which we can't. That's probably the hardest part of our business, is just dealing with all the people and trying to keep them all happy, keep them all working, and keep them all moving forward.
How do you know when to say no? So like, you obviously have a bathtub that only has a certain amount of capacity, and it's up to you to delegate to keep it. Because you're maintaining the overview of the whole plan. How do you know when to go, that's not my job, I'll pass that on to this person?
These days it's pretty easy for me. In the early days it was pretty hard, just taking on everything onto myself. But these days I've pretty much conditioned myself that there's certain problems that are in my wheelhouse, and if it's not, they just get passed on, delegated to the people who we pay to look after those problems. So it's just take the emotion out of it. Take the friendship out of it from the person. You may like them, you may want to help them, but if it's not your problem.
Obviously, you're quite big on having the right mindset, the right community. Was that always the case at the start, or has that sort of developed over the years as well?
No, it's always been there from the start. We want a certain type of people. For us, it's not about having anybody with the money to buy the franchise. It's about having the right person. We only want people in our business that we like. There's certain types of people we like. There's certain types of people we don't like. There's certain types of people we do like are people that want to work hard. They want to build something. They want to take responsibility for the positive and the negative that comes from their business. They want to be a part of a team. They're the people that we want. The people we don't want are the people that come with a whole bag full of excuses. That's not us. The whole victim mentality, that's not us, because we can't build those people up. We can't help them to build a positive, profitable business. So it's just about, for us, recruiting the people that we want in our business.
So when you're meeting with these people, what are some of the things that you're asking them? How are you finding out these traits in them? Because anyone can perform, anyone can put a mask on.
Yep. So a lot of it's just diving questions into their past. Someone's past is a great example of what's going to happen in the future. So you're talking about their family life, where they've come from, types of jobs they've had. And then, you just start putting scenarios in front of them. How would you deal with this, or how would you deal with that? Big things that if they're talking about their finances and they need to go borrow the money off mum and dad, bit of a red flag. If they've got some credit defaults on their credit file from very basic stuff, like they haven't paid their phone bill on time. And when you talk to them about it, it's the phone company's fault. They're major red flags for us. They're the type of people we stay away from. But for us, it's just about looking for someone who wants to take charge of their own life, because they're the type of person that we can help and we can mould and guide and help build a very profitable business.
Okay, so it's not a case of that they haven't paid their phone bill. It's how they respond to the question.
Yeah,
So if someone said,
yeah.
"Hey, why are you behind on this?" I've been bad with my finances. That would be like, okay, we can work with that.
Yeah, 100%. You know, someone may not pay their phone bill and you ask why, and they explain that 2 years ago they went through a divorce and they had a 6-month period of pretty poor finances because they were separating from their partner. They had to get a second house but still provide for their kids. And then you look at their credit history and that was just one little blip. And you can go, great, you know, that's the type of person we want. You know, they admit that they made that mistake, but that one mistake's not going to define their life forever. When they've made that mistake and they don't take ownership for it and they blame the phone company because they didn't pay their phone bill, that's the type of person we don't want. Everyone makes mistakes, everyone has issues throughout their life, but it's about taking ownership of that there and then moving forward.
I like that. It's really strong. All right, we're going to go on to a little bit of a question and answer here. Finish the sentence. The biggest myth about starting a business is?
It's easy.
Okay.
Yeah, anyone can do it. If anyone could do it, everyone would do it. It's very hard. Starting any business is not easy, and that's why you have franchises, because we just make it that little bit easier. We take that little bit of risk out of it that would normally be there. But having a successful business is not easy.
What would you say the hardest part is about running a successful business? Because it's not getting in the business, it's staying in business, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Cash flow management. Too many people start a business and then 9 months later they're out buying the new Ford Ranger or the new Hilux, but they haven't even started paying tax yet. You know, they haven't got the workers' comp or the ACC bill yet. So managing that cash flow for many, many months in advance is probably the hardest thing that catches most people up.
What's your thoughts on schools educating children on this, running businesses, paying tax, provisional tax?
Public schools?
Yeah.
Crap.
Yeah?
New Zealand and Australia public education system is absolutely horrible, and they do an injustice and an inservice to our kids. So I have no faith in the public education system at all.
How do you manage that with your own children?
Private schooling, tutoring, a lot of work done at home to fill the gaps that the schooling system doesn't put into our kids. Yeah.
I can tell, obviously, the Rite Group's very family orientated.
Yep.
I know with my sons, whenever I need to bring them in, welcome, bring the kids in.
Yeah.
So they're getting a chance to see businesses in action, operating and moving around. How often do you sit down with your kids or get them involved in the business?
Our business all the time. You know, the kids know exactly what we do. You know, we talk about finances a lot with them, mostly their finances. And their finances about their little allowance they get, how much they put away into their, they've got big money tins that they're saving for their first house. Cool. And just starting to expose them to, how money works and how to make it work for you.
Okay. What's the single best piece of advice you've ever ignored? We'll go with that.
Best piece of advice I've ever ignored. I've sold a couple of franchises to people that I shouldn't have, and I was told not to. So that's probably a big one. That's probably by far the biggest one that I regret when it comes to this business.
Are you stuck with franchises once they buy in?
Yes. Yeah, getting rid of a bad franchisee is harder, longer, and sometimes more costly than getting a divorce.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, now if the franchisee wanted out, how does that work?
If they want out and I want them out,
yeah.
Then it's fairly easy. We can basically negotiate an exit that's happy, sign a deed of settlement, and they go on their way, I go on my way.
Okay.
But normally, if you want to get rid of a franchisee, they don't want to leave. Yeah.
Is that the same as employees?
Yeah, but even worse.
Oh, wow. I guess there's a few more contracts involved.
Yeah, you literally got the franchise agreement. And in this day and age, the franchise agreement or the contract is usually weighted fairly equally to protect them, but also to protect myself.
Okay. Well, I'm hearing is that you're really good with money management. It's probably a big part of your job.
Yep,
You said you started with nothing and you've
yep,
come from, what, Australia with $2,000 in a dream.
yep.
Where did you learn this financial literacy?
A lot of trial and error.
Okay.
When I first started in business, I wouldn't say I had it. But when you start working and you've got to start paying employees and paying taxes and paying rents, you have to manage the money or you just won't have the money left over.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so when we first started this business, I didn't take a single paycheck for almost 2 years. I think it was 21 months before I took a single paycheck. And even then, it worked out to be about $10 an hour. And that was just so I could keep all the money into the business to make sure that I had a buffer there to be able to pay staff, pay taxes, pay rents, pay everything. And I literally took the bare minimum that I had to. So the proceeds from the debt collection business funded me for the first 2 years before I literally had to take something out of the business.
How did you remain disciplined that whole time? Like, you obviously got to eat.
Yeah, yeah. Just had no choice. You know what I mean? You got that goal, you got the vision, you got the dream, and you just keep working towards it.
Okay, vision and dream. That's a good segue. What do you want the Right Group to stand for in 10 years?
Just good people doing good things. You know what I mean? I'm very proud that 99% of all of our people in the business are good people. People from all around the world, different makes, different models, different thought patterns, but they're all good people. And as we keep on expanding into different countries and different services, just keep that ethos there that, we only want good people in our business. And I'm fortunate that I get to choose who I'm in business with because I choose to accept the franchisees and just hope that I continue to choose good people.
Okay, in terms of good people, here's a good question for you. What are the top 3 qualities or traits a young man should look for a wife if he's interested in business?
Family orientated is a big one. Someone who lives below their means financially. I know way too many people that have great businesses and great jobs that has partners that burn cash. That's probably a big thing. And then again, just a good person, a good, honest, nice person.
What does that look like? What actions would this young man be looking for?
For me, it was Sarah. So you obviously know my partner. I think just stop looking for that fake plastic Instagram model that is just looking for the attention of every bloke out there. It's never going to work out.
Good advice for those of you who are listening. What excites you the most about the future in this particular business right now?
In our business or the industry?
Both.
In our business, just growth. So we've started Wash Right in Australia in February. We've already rolled out 10 franchises this year. Should be about 11 or 12 by the end of the year. So just more and more growth across our entire business, adding more and more people to the business. With the franchise sector, I think I'm excited to see that the franchise sector is starting to turn away from the idea of any franchisee is a good franchisee.
Okay.
Through COVID, we had a massive influx of migrants into Australia and New Zealand. And these migrants all wanted to jump onto a business. And a big part of those migrants were not suitable to be in business today. And a lot of franchise businesses that I speak to recruited a lot of them, and now they're stuck with them, and they're just not suitable franchisees. Not because they're not good people, but they just don't know the New Zealand or the Australian way. They just don't know, they don't have a community network in the country yet. So these people, they migrate to Australia or New Zealand and then they buy a franchise and they think just because they've brought a franchise, they've brought financial security. It's not the case. When they've brought the franchise, they've brought the opportunity to operate that business in a certain area. There's no guarantees of success. But in the last 6 months, a lot of franchisees, including myself, have put minimum restrictions on people. So for our business, for me to even sell you a franchise, you have to live in the country that you're going to operate in for at least 4 years. and you must live in the city you're going to operate in for at least 2 years.
Okay.
And that's just to give that franchisee enough time to build enough of a friendship circle and network that will support them in the early stages of their business.
And that's really important, having that support network.
Yeah, it is. It is because in the franchising sector, the migrant community is such an important part of it, but you don't want to set them up to fail. And without having that support network of friends and family and contacts and associates, it just makes it that much harder for them. So it's been great to see a lot of franchise networks have taken the same lead that we've taken and just decided not to sell franchises to those people just yet.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, it's in their best interest.
It is. Yep, it definitely is.
Good. All right. Final question. How would you summarize success now versus how you would have summarized success when you were leaving the army?
Oh, so when I left the army, success was to have enough money in your pocket to go out for a good night. Yeah, if I had $500, $1,000 in my pocket, I was hugely successful. Today, it's just having the freedom to do what I want when I want. And that could be going to my kids' school event. It could be going on holidays. It could be going to the beach. Just having that freedom to do what I want and when I want is, for me, the biggest metric to success. And it's the same metric that I try and pass on to our franchisees. That's why we want them in our business, so they can build a successful business where they can make that choice whenever they want to do what they want.
That's powerful. I was about to ask you, is that that's the same thing that is provided to a franchise owner who buys in, has control over their time,
Yep.
immediately can be available. A lot of fathers who go to work, and mothers go to work every day, can't be there for the assembly, but buying into a franchise means they could control that time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, with our 4 brands, definitely, they all control their schedule. They choose days and times that they want to work. And if they don't want to work a certain day or a certain time, it's up to them.
Thank you, Troy, for coming on board.
Cheers.
I'll probably leave it there. Cheers, man.
Cheers.